The sun glinted off her sunglasses as she turned toward me, catching me mid-stare. "Enjoying the view?" she asked with a hint of amusement in her voice. In that moment, I forgot she was my CEO, forgot about the mountain of work waiting at home, forgot everything except the truth that tumbled from my lips. "It's the first beautiful thing I've seen since my wife died." Her smile faded, and something in her eyes changed. Neither of us knew it then, but those words would alter both our lives forever. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content that touches the heart. Your support means everything. I never expected to find myself at a company beach retreat. As the newest senior developer at Horizon Tech, I'd only been with the firm for 3 months, barely long enough to learn everyone's names, let alone feel comfortable lounging around them in swim trunks. "Dad, can we go now?" My 8-year-old daughter Emma tugged at my hand, her swimsuit still dry despite the perfect beach day stretching before us. "I don't know anyone here." "Just a little longer, sweetie," I said, squeezing her small hand. Dad needs to make a good impression. The truth was, I needed this job more than they needed me. After Claire died 18 months ago, I'd been barely treading water, emotionally and financially. The medical bills had drained our savings, and raising Emma alone while trying to maintain my career had proven nearly impossible. 3 jobs in 18 months. This one at Horizon had to stick. "Mark. You made it." Jason from marketing waved us over to a cluster of beach chairs where several colleagues were gathered. "And this must be Emma. We've heard so much about you." Emma pressed herself against my leg, suddenly shy. I couldn't blame her. We'd both become unaccustomed to social situations. "The boss is around here somewhere," Jason continued, scanning the beach. "She specifically asked if you were coming." My stomach tightened. Vivian Chen, CEO and founder of Horizon Tech, was something of a legend in the industry. Brilliant, demanding, and notoriously private. In my 3 months, I'd only seen her twice, both times in all-hands meetings where she spoke with the kind of quiet authority that commanded a room without raising her voice. "Probably wants to talk about the Patterson project," I muttered, more to myself than Jason. "Nah, man. No shop talk today, company rule. This is strictly for unwinding." Jason handed me a soda from the cooler. "You look like you could use some unwinding." He wasn't wrong. The dark circles under my eyes had become a permanent fixture, and my colleagues had probably noticed I wore the same 3 shirts in rotation. Single parenthood didn't leave much time for shopping or self-care. "Emma, why don't you check out the kids' area?" Jason pointed toward a section of beach where several children were building elaborate sand castles under the supervision of what appeared to be professional childcare staff. "My twins are over there. They're about your age." Emma looked up at me questioningly. "Go ahead," I encouraged. "I'll be right here." As she cautiously made her way toward the other children, I felt the familiar pang of guilt. Since Claire died, Emma had become so serious, so careful. At 8, she worried about things no child should, whether I'd remembered to eat lunch, whether we had enough money for groceries, whether I was sad when I thought she wasn't looking. "She'll be fine," Jason said, misreading my concern. "The company hires the best childcare staff for these events. Vivian insists on it, says parents shouldn't have to choose between career networking and being good parents." I nodded, watching as a young woman with a bright smile introduced Emma to a group of kids. Within minutes, my daughter was tentatively smiling as they invited her to help with their sand castle. "I'm going to take a walk," I told Jason, suddenly needing a moment alone. The beach stretched out before me, less crowded as I moved away from the main company area. The June sun was warm but not yet oppressive, and the sound of waves provided a soothing backdrop to my thoughts. For the first time in months, I felt myself taking a full breath. That's when I saw her. At first, I didn't recognize Vivian Chen. Out of her usual impeccable business attire, she looked younger, more approachable. She lay on a towel some distance from the main group, reading a book, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a modest navy blue swimsuit and large sunglasses. I should have turned around immediately. Instead, I froze, struck by how peaceful she looked, so different from the intense CEO who drove our company to innovation after innovation. Before I could retreat, she sensed my presence and looked up. The sun glinted off her sunglasses as she turned toward me. "Enjoying the view?" she asked, her tone somewhere between amusement and challenge. My face burned with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Miss Chen. I didn't mean to, I was just walking in." "You're Mark Sullivan, right? New senior developer on the Patterson project?" "Yes," I managed, surprised she knew who I was. She sat up, marking her place in her book. "Join me for a minute?" It wasn't really a question. I sat down awkwardly on the sand beside her towel, keeping a respectful distance. "How are you finding Horizon so far?" she asked. "It's great," I said automatically. "The team is talented, and the work is challenging in the best way." She tilted her head slightly. "That's the answer you're supposed to give your CEO. I'm asking how you're really finding it." Something about her direct gaze made me feel she would know if I wasn't honest. "It's been a lifeline," I admitted. After everything that happened last year, I needed stability. Horizon offered that. "Everything that happened?" she prompted. I hadn't meant to bring it up. Most of my colleagues knew I was a widower, but I kept the details vague. It was easier that way, no pitying looks, no awkward conversations. "My wife died of cancer 18 months ago," I said, the words still feeling strange in my mouth. "It's been just me and my daughter Emma since then." "I'm sorry for your loss," she said, and unlike when most people said it, it didn't sound like a rehearsed platitude. "Thank you," I replied, looking out at the ocean. "That's why this job means so much. Emma needs stability, routine. She's had enough upheaval." Vivian nodded, following my gaze to the horizon. We sat in surprisingly comfortable silence for a moment. "And what about you?" she finally asked. "What do you need?" The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me that in a long time. "I need to be a good father," I answered automatically. "That's not what I asked," she said gently. Maybe it was the unusual setting, away from the office hierarchy. Maybe it was just that I was tired of pretending. Whatever the reason, I found myself answering honestly. "I don't know what I need anymore," I admitted. For so long, it was all about Claire's treatment, and then after she died, it became all about Emma. Making sure she's okay, that she feels secure, that she knows she's loved. There hasn't been room for anything else. Vivian removed her sunglasses, and I was struck by the intensity of her dark eyes. "And before all that? What did Mark Sullivan want from life?" I laughed softly, the sound rusty from disuse. "Would you believe I wanted to start my own company someday? Claire and I used to stay up late talking about it. She was a graphic designer, we thought we'd make a good team." "You still could," she said. "Start your own company, I mean." "No," I shook my head. "That dream died with Claire. Now I just need to provide for Emma." Vivian was quiet for a moment, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. "Earlier, when I asked if you were enjoying the view," she said, "you looked like you'd been caught doing something wrong." I felt my face flush again. I apologize for staring. It was inappropriate. "I'm not fishing for an apology," she said. "I'm curious about your reaction. You looked guilty." I hesitated, then decided honesty was the best approach. "It's been a long time since I noticed beauty of any kind," I admitted. "After Claire died, it was like the world lost its color. I've been so focused on survival, on getting through each day, that I stopped seeing everything else." The words hung in the air between us, more revealing than I'd intended. "And today?" she asked quietly. I looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted inside me. It's the first beautiful thing I've seen since my wife died. As soon as the words left my mouth, I wanted to take them back. They were too personal, too raw, and completely inappropriate to say to my CEO. Vivian's smile faded, and something in her eyes changed. She looked away, toward the ocean, and for a moment I thought I'd offended her deeply. I'm sorry, I started to say, already calculating how quickly I could update my resume. Don't apologize for honesty, she said, her voice softer than before. It's refreshing. She put her sunglasses back on, creating a barrier between us again. I lost someone too, she said after a moment. My sister. 3 years ago. Car accident. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. We were twins, she continued. When she died, I threw myself into work. Horizon became everything. It was easier than feeling the loss. I nodded, understanding completely. The Patterson Project, she said, changing the subject abruptly. Your ideas for the user interface are impressive. They remind me of something my sister might have designed. Thank you, I said, surprised by the compliment. I should get back, she said, gathering her book and standing up. People will talk if I spend too long chatting with one employee. I stood too, brushing sand from my shorts. Of course. Thank you for the conversation, Ms. Chen. Vivian, she corrected. At least when we're not in the office. As she walked away, I had the strange feeling that something significant had just happened, though I couldn't have explained what. The weeks following the beach retreat passed in a blur of coding and parenting. The Patterson project entered its critical phase, and I found myself working late most nights after Emma went to bed. Strangely, I didn't mind the long hours. For the first time since Claire died, I felt engaged with my work, challenged in ways that woke up parts of my brain that had been dormant. More surprising was that Vivian Chen began stopping by our team meetings. She would slip in quietly, listen for a while, occasionally ask a penetrating question that would send us back to the drawing board, but more often than not, she would simply nod in approval. Is it normal for the CEO to be this involved in a project? I asked Jason one day after she'd left. He shook his head. Not even a little bit. She must see something special in what we're doing. Or someone, his expression seemed to suggest, though he didn't say it aloud. I dismissed the thought. Our conversation on the beach had been a moment of unexpected connection, nothing more. Vivian Chen was simply a hands-on CEO who recognized the importance of the Patterson project to the company's future. Then came the night that changed everything. I was working late, the office nearly empty. Emma was having a sleepover at a new friend's house, a development that both thrilled and terrified me. It was the first time she'd been comfortable enough to stay overnight with someone since Claire died. You're still here. I looked up to find Vivian standing in the doorway of the small conference room I'd commandeered. She'd shed her blazer, and her silk blouse was slightly rumpled after what must have been a long day. Just finishing up some code, I explained. It's easier to concentrate when the office is quiet. And Emma? The fact that she remembered my daughter's name shouldn't have affected me as much as it did. Sleepover, I said. First one since, well, in a long time. Vivian nodded, understanding in her eyes. Have you eaten? I glanced at the time on my computer screen, 9:47 p.m. I had a protein bar around 6, I admitted. That's not dinner, she said decisively. Come on. There's a decent Thai place around the corner that delivers late. Before I could protest, she was on her phone placing an order. Pad Thai okay? Not too spicy? That's fine, I said, bemused by this turn of events. While we waited for the food, she pulled up a chair beside me. Show me what you're working on. I turned my screen toward her, explaining the code I was debugging. To my surprise, she followed along easily, asking intelligent questions that showed she understood not just the business implications but the technical aspects as well. "You code?" I asked, impressed. "I started Horizon in my garage," she reminded me with a small smile. "Before we could afford to hire developers, I did everything myself. I'm rusty now, but I still remember the basics." Our food arrived, and we moved to the small kitchen area to eat. As we shared the meal, our conversation shifted from work to more personal topics. I told her about Emma's recent interest in robotics, sparked by a school science fair. She told me about her latest rock climbing expedition, a hobby I would never have guessed she had. "It forces me to be present," she explained. "When you're hanging off the side of a cliff, you can't think about quarterly reports or market projections." "I need something like that," I admitted. "Something that forces me out of my head." "What did you do before?" she asked. "For fun, I mean." I had to think about it. "Claire and I used to hike. Nothing as extreme as rock climbing, but we loved being outdoors. We had plans to take Emma to all the national parks eventually." "You still could," she suggested gently. I nodded, considering it for the first time. "Maybe. Emma would like that." As we finished eating, I realized with a start that I just had dinner with my CEO, and somehow it had felt completely natural. More than that, I'd enjoyed myself in a way I hadn't in years. "I should go," I said, gathering the takeout containers. "It's getting late." "Mark," Vivian said as I stood to leave. "The Patterson project is important, but not at the expense of your health. Go home. Get some rest." "I will," I promised. "And thank you. For dinner and everything." She smiled, and for a moment I glimpsed the woman from the beach again, the one who had asked me what I needed, not just what I could give to the company. "Good night, Mark." The next few months brought subtle but significant changes. Emma blossomed at her new school, making friends and joining the robotics club. I found myself sleeping better, the crushing weight of grief lifting enough that I could sometimes go hours without thinking about what I'd lost. At work, the Patterson project progressed ahead of schedule. My team worked well together, and I discovered I had a talent for leadership that I hadn't known I possessed. Vivian's occasional presence in our meetings became something I looked forward to, though I was careful not to show it. Our late-night dinner wasn't repeated, but something had shifted between us. Sometimes I would look up from my computer to find her watching me from across the office, a thoughtful expression on her face. Other times, she would send me brief emails with articles about hiking trails suitable for children, or about grief support groups for young widowers. I didn't know what to make of it. She was my CEO, and any kind of personal relationship seemed inappropriate. Yet I couldn't deny the connection I felt to her, a connection based not on attraction, though she was undeniably attractive, but on mutual understanding of loss. Then came the day of the Patterson project launch. After months of work, we were finally ready to present our software to the client. The presentation went flawlessly, and by the end, the client was practically throwing money at us for expanded features and ongoing support. "This calls for a celebration," Jason declared as we returned to the office. "Drinks at Westlake's tonight. The whole team." I hesitated, already formulating an excuse. Emma had a science project due, and I needed to help her finish it. "You should go," said a voice behind me. Vivian had joined our group without me noticing. "The team deserves to celebrate, and so do you." "I need to help Emma with her project," I explained. "What kind of project?" she asked. "She's building a simple robot that can follow a line. We've got most of it done, but the programming is giving us trouble." Vivian considered this for a moment. "What if I helped her? I may be rusty, but I can still program a line-following robot." The offer caught me completely off guard. "You want to help my daughter with her science project?" "Why not? It sounds more interesting than." I'll continue the story from where I left off. Why not? It sounds more interesting than the budget reports I was planning to review tonight, Vivian said with a slight smile. Unless you're uncomfortable with the idea. I should have been uncomfortable. This was my CEO offering to come to my home, to meet my daughter in a personal context. Every professional boundary was about to be crossed. Emma would love the help, I heard myself say. She's been talking about your robotics initiative since the company newsletter featured it. And that's how Vivian Chen, CEO of Horizon Tech, ended up sitting cross-legged on my living room floor with my daughter, troubleshooting code for a line-following robot. You have to tell it what to do when it loses the line, Vivian explained patiently, as Emma watched with rapt attention. Right now, it just stops. What do you think it should do instead? Maybe it could go back to where it last saw the line. Emma suggested hesitantly. Exactly. Vivian's face lit up. Let's try coding that. I watched from the kitchen as I prepared a simple dinner, struck by how natural they looked together. Emma, who had become so guarded around adults, was animated and curious with Vivian. And Vivian herself seemed transformed, the composed, sometimes intimidating CEO replaced by an enthusiastic mentor who celebrated each small breakthrough with a high five. Dad! Look! It works! Emma called excitedly as the small robot successfully navigated a curving black line taped to our floor. That's amazing, sweetheart, I said, joining them. What did you fix? Ms. Chen showed me how to write a loop that makes it search in bigger and bigger circles until it finds the line again, Emma explained, her eyes shining. And she said I figured out the sensor calibration all by myself. She did, Vivian confirmed. Your daughter has a natural talent for this, Mark. She thinks like an engineer. The pride in Emma's face was something I hadn't seen since before Claire got sick. I felt a lump form in my throat. Dinner's ready, I managed. Vivian, will you join us? It's just pasta, nothing fancy. I'd love to, she said, helping Emma gather the robot and her project materials. Over dinner, Emma dominated the conversation, asking Vivian questions about robotics, coding, and what it was like to run a company. Vivian answered each question thoughtfully, treating Emma with the same respect she would give a colleague. Did you always want to be a CEO? Emma asked between bites of spaghetti. Vivian considered the question. Not exactly. I wanted to build things that would help people. Being CEO just happened because I needed to start my own company to build what I imagined. Like Dad, Emma said matter-of-factly. He wanted to start a company too. With Mom. I nearly choked on my water. Emma. It's okay, Vivian said gently. Your dad told me about that dream. He did? Emma looked surprised, then pleased. He doesn't talk about before much. Before? Vivian asked. Before Mom died, Emma clarified with the directness only children possess. Sometimes it's like our life is divided into before and after. The table fell silent. I reached for Emma's hand, unsure what to say. I understand that, Vivian finally said. When my sister died, I felt the same way. Before and after. But eventually, I started to think of it as before, after, and now. Emma considered this. Now is different from after. Now is when you start building something new, Vivian explained. After is just surviving the loss. Now is when you begin to live again. Emma nodded slowly. I think we're in now, then. Dad smiles more. And I have friends again. I felt tears prick at my eyes. I hadn't realized Emma had been watching me so closely, measuring my grief against her own. I think you're right, I told her, squeezing her hand. We're definitely in now. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Vivian her room, particularly her growing collection of robot kits and science books. I cleaned up the kitchen, listening to their voices down the hall, feeling a strange sense of rightness I couldn't quite explain. When Emma's bedtime arrived, she surprised us both by asking if Vivian would read her bedtime story. "If your dad doesn't mind," Vivian said, looking to me for permission. "Of course not," I said, though part of me wondered if I was allowing Emma to become too attached too quickly. I used the time to make coffee, and when Vivian emerged from Emma's room 20 minutes later, I had 2 mugs waiting. "She's asleep," Vivian said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "She made me promise to come see her science fair next month." "You don't have to," I assured her. "Emma gets excited about new people. She'll understand if you're busy." Vivian took a sip of her coffee, studying me over the rim of her mug. "What if I want to come?" The question hung in the air between us, loaded with implications neither of us had voiced. "Vivian," I began carefully, "I appreciate everything you've done tonight. Emma hasn't been this excited about anything in a long time. But I have to ask, why are you here?" "Really?" She set her mug down, considering her answer. "When we talked on the beach that day, you said something that stayed with me. About not seeing beauty since your wife died. I recognized that feeling, the grayness that comes after loss." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "After my sister died, I shut down everything except work. Horizon became my entire life. It was safer that way, no attachments, no risk of more loss. But then I met you and Emma, and I saw how you were fighting to build something new from the ashes. It made me wonder if I could do the same. So we're, what? A self-improvement project?" I asked, more sharply than I intended. "No," she said firmly. "You're a reminder that there's life after loss. And tonight." She gestured around my modest living room. "This felt like life. Real life, not just existing." I understood exactly what she meant. The evening had felt more authentic, more alive than anything I'd experienced since Claire died. "I don't know what this is," I admitted. "You're my boss. There are complications." "Many," she agreed. "Professional boundaries, power dynamics, your daughter's well-being, the company's reputation. I've thought about all of it. And I still wanted to help Emma with her robot," she said simply. "I still wanted to have dinner with you both. I still want to come to her science fair." I took a deep breath. "What are you suggesting?" "Friendship," she said. "For now. Let's not overthink it. I enjoy spending time with you and Emma. If you both feel the same, perhaps we could do this again sometime." It sounded reasonable, measured, appropriate. Yet we both knew there was potential for more, a possibility neither of us was ready to name. "I'd like that," I said finally. "And Emma would too." When I walked Vivian to her car later that evening, there was a moment, brief but electric, when I thought she might lean in, or I might. Instead, she squeezed my hand once, quickly, before getting into her car. "Good night, Mark," she said through the open window. "Thank you for dinner." "Thank you for the robot rescue," I replied with a smile. As I watched her drive away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 18 months, anticipation. Not just for tomorrow, but for the future, a future that suddenly seemed wider and more colorful than before. The weeks that followed established a new pattern. Vivian began joining Emma and me for dinner once a week. Sometimes we cooked together, other times, we ordered takeout. Emma looked forward to these evenings with an enthusiasm that both warmed and worried me. Was I allowing her to become too attached to someone who might not stay in our lives? At work, Vivian and I maintained strict professionalism. If my colleagues suspected anything, they were discreet enough not to mention it. The success of the Patterson project had elevated my standing in the company, and I was assigned to lead a new, even more ambitious initiative. Emma's science fair arrived on a rainy Saturday in October. Her robot, now significantly enhanced thanks to Vivian's guidance, performed flawlessly, earning her first place in her grade level. The pride on her face as she accepted the ribbon was matched only by the pride I felt watching her. "We did it," she exclaimed, running to where Vivian and I stood at the back of the gymnasium. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around Vivian's waist. I saw the surprise on Vivian's face, quickly replaced by something softer as she returned Emma's hug. "You did it," she corrected gently. "All I did was help with a few lines of code." "But you believed I could do it," Emma insisted. "That's important too." Over Emma's head, Vivian's eyes met mine, and I saw in them a reflection of what I was feeling, joy tinged with fear, the terrifying vulnerability of caring deeply. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, still buzzing with excitement from her win, Vivian and I sat on my small balcony, watching the rain. "She's getting attached to you," I said quietly. "I know," Vivian acknowledged. "I'm getting attached to her too. To both of you." The admission hung between us, neither of us sure what to do with it. "I'm her father," I said finally. "It's my job to protect her. If this, whatever this is, doesn't work out, she'll be devastated." "And if we never try?" Vivian asked. "What then?" I didn't have an answer. The safe choice would be to end things now, before Emma's heart was fully invested. Before mine was. But I'd been making the safe choice for 18 months, and where had it gotten me? "I'm scared," I admitted. "Not just for Emma. For me too." Vivian reached across the space between our chairs, taking my hand in hers. "So am I. I haven't let anyone close since my sister died. It's terrifying." "So why are you here?" I asked, echoing my question from weeks before. "Because some things are worth being terrified for," she said simply. In that moment, with the rain falling softly around us and her hand warm in mine, I made a decision. I leaned across the space between us and kissed her, gently, briefly, a question more than a statement. When I pulled back, her eyes were wide with surprise, but she didn't let go of my hand. "I've been wanting to do that since the beach," I confessed. "That long?" she asked with a small smile. "Maybe longer," I admitted. "Maybe since the first time I saw you in that all-hands meeting, looking so confident and certain about everything." She laughed softly. "I'm never certain about anything. I've just gotten good at faking it." "Could have fooled me," I said, smiling back. "I think I just did," she replied, and this time she was the one who leaned in. 6 months later, Emma and I moved into a house with a backyard, a place with room for her growing collection of robotics projects and for the puppy Vivian had helped us adopt from the shelter. Professionally, I had been promoted to Director of Innovation, reporting directly to the CTO rather than to Vivian, removing the most problematic aspect of our relationship. The transition hadn't been without challenges. There were whispers at work, despite our discretion. Emma had moments of confusion and fear, worried that loving Vivian somehow betrayed her mother's memory. And Vivian herself sometimes pulled back, overwhelmed by the responsibility of becoming part of a family after years of independence. But we worked through each obstacle together, with honesty and patience. I learned that Vivian's driven personality masked a deep fear of failure that stemmed from losing her twin. She learned that my easygoing nature concealed a stubborn streak a mile wide, especially when it came to Emma's well-being. And Emma? She learned that hearts have an infinite capacity for love, that making room for Vivian didn't diminish her love for the mother she'd lost. On a warm day in June, exactly 1 year after that fateful beach retreat, we returned to the same spot. Emma raced ahead to build sand castles with the children of other Horizon employees, now friends rather than strangers. Vivian and I walked along the shoreline, hand in hand, no longer concerned about who might see us. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked. "When you found me sunbathing?" "Only every time something good happens in my life," I replied with a smile. "Which has been quite often lately." She stopped walking, turning to face me. "I've been thinking about what you said then, about it being the first beautiful thing you'd seen since Claire died." "I remember," I said, slightly embarrassed by my past candor. Not my smoothest moment. It was perfect, she corrected. It was honest. And it made me see you, really see you. She took both my hands in hers. I have something to ask you, and I want you to be equally honest with your answer. My heart began to race as she reached into her beach bag and pulled out a small box. I talked to Emma about this last week, she continued. She gave me her blessing, but said the final decision was yours. She opened the box to reveal a simple platinum band. Mark Sullivan, would you consider building a new company with me? A different kind of startup, one that involves a marriage license and possibly more children down the road? Joy bubbled up inside me, unexpected and overwhelming. Are you proposing to me on the company beach retreat? I asked, laughing through sudden tears. Seemed fitting, she said, her own eyes shining. This is where our story began. But I'm hoping it's nowhere near the end. I pulled her close, kissing her with all the love and gratitude I felt. Yes, I whispered against her lips. 1,000 times yes. From down the beach, I heard Emma's delighted squeal as she spotted us and realized what was happening. She came running toward us, sand flying from her feet, her face alight with joy. As I held my arms open to include her in our embrace, I marveled at how completely my life had transformed in a single year. From the depths of grief to this moment of perfect happiness, all because I had been honest about seeing beauty again. Dad! Did you say yes? Emma demanded, crashing into our hug with the full force of her enthusiasm. I did, I confirmed, lifting her up so she was level with our faces. Is that okay with you? Duh, she said, rolling her eyes in that preteen way she'd recently adopted. I already told Vivian yes last week. We've been waiting for you to catch up. Vivian laughed, the sound carrying across the beach. That's my girl, she said, ruffling Emma's hair. My girl, I thought, watching them together. Our girl. And as the three of us stood there on the beach, arms intertwined and hearts aligned, I knew with absolute certainty that this was what I had needed all along, not just to survive my loss, but to find the courage to build something new from its ashes. Sometimes life's most profound changes begin with the simplest truths. For me, it started with admitting I could see beauty again, in a sunbathing CEO who asked if I was enjoying the view, and who helped me discover that the answer could be yes, once more. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content that explores life's unexpected journeys. Remember that even in our darkest moments, connection and honesty can lead us back to light. Share in the comments if you've ever had a moment of unexpected honesty that changed your life's direction. Your story might inspire someone else who needs it today.